very strongest terms that any effort to push the City Council into a hurried decision at this time is basically improper public policy, and it's a betrayal of the public trust.
The latest figure we have that was given to us by Mr. Brown is just a matter of a couple of hours ago was he has 75% of that space committed through letter of intent, well above the 50% that is required in our development agreement.
We're here today just to let the people see our facility, see what we're all about here at Afton Row, as well as to enjoy the decorations and getting in the spirit of the Christmas Eve.
Just give me another finger then in this here. All right, thank you. Yep.
This is the Steelworkers song, and I would really like to get everyone's. As far as open heart, foundry and mill, from ingot mold stripping, discarding and chipping, to outweigh the slag bites are in the coat.
We were kind of sad that my dad lost his job, and we just didn't know what to do. We kind of thought they would go back to work, but they didn't. And I don't know, it's just kind of sad.
Well, everybody understands that you got to cut back some, I guess. I'm one of the luckier ones. My wife is still working, so it hasn't affected me near as much as some of the guys it has.
For a decade, the community has been just really good about supporting us at a pretty constant rate. In the past couple of years, we've seen those cash contributions slipping.
What? 12:30.
generation of men, and it's like, I think it's real important that men start changing their behavior, and society has to reinforce that, and friends and other men all have got to start challenging men that are violent.
Ten years ago, a financial analyst said Giants Ridge would never see more than 20,000 skiers a year. Much to the operator's delight, last year the ridge saw over 250,000 visitors.
Key is the repeat skiers. That when people come, try it. It's the only ski hill in the region that grooms every day during the daytime.
This is the 10th season the Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation Board has operated the resort. With the success has come controversy. IRRB board member Tom Ruckavina is questioning why the Ridge chose to hire consulting firms from outside the area, including Twin Cities accountants.
We needed somebody that had strong connections with the statewide accounting system of all the agencies. And the only ones that had that kind of background were Twin Cities firms.
Also controversial, spending over $70,000 for a Brainerd ad firm which still has no commercials on radio or TV.
As we went through our transition from the old system to the new system, we've been spending our time doing creative work and research, and you'll be seeing a lot of stuff on the media very soon.
Gustafson is confident the ad blitz will help them exceed last year's record revenue. He's looking forward to expansion. Next year, the Ridge might add an expert run on the backside of the mountain. The addition could cost over $500,000. An engineering survey is set for next spring. Reporting from Giants Ridge, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Formal discussion, but it is a concern that the denial of access by handicapped people to those areas, and by people who aren't necessarily handicapped but are just getting a little bit too old to make it over a 4-mile portage or however long it is, and people that have lived here all their lives and enjoyed that wilderness area and took care of it.
Precipitation, high winds, and fog. Just a few weather elements that can limit visibility, especially in Duluth. High technology could soon help alert motorists to potentially hazardous driving conditions. This infrared sensor shoots a beam at these targets. Visibility is measured by the sensor's ability to sight the targets positioned at fixed distances, and accuracy is determined by using 3 different sensors.
We find a lot of variation when the visibility readings are real high. When you've got good visibility, any little thing can cause a variance between the 3.
The information collected is sent via computer to the Minnesota Department of Transportation in Duluth. A state-funded weather station aids in determining the accuracy of information given by the sensors. Condensation, frost, and snow can sometimes cloud the lens and cause error in the data.
We send out manual observers when the visibility drops down below 500 meters to look at the targets we have there, because the true sense of a sensor is how does it compare to the human eye, because that's the driver, how he perceives the fog, the visibility.
If the command is made, these sensors can take a reading every minute, giving the highway patrol the latest information. In the future, electronic signs will display visibility conditions that motorists can expect to encounter when traveling down the highway.
So we're doing 2 things, how it compares to the human eye and how reliable are they throughout 24 hours under various conditions, and how do they relate to each other.
Experts hope that successful research will produce a network of these sensors and thus help reduce the risk of multiple car accidents nationwide. In Duluth, I'm News 6 meteorologist John Jetta. In Duluth, John Jetta, KARE 11 News. In Duluth, Minnesota, John Jetta for NBC News.
Call barcodes. You've got to get rid of the barcodes of the witchcraft. Are you a witch? Are you a witch? Are you a witch?
Get in the car.
How come you didn't call me today, Vance?
I'm grateful that no one was injured. There's very minor damage to one door in the squad, so that's going to be easily fixed. And I feel real glad that there wasn't anything more serious. That Vance didn't hurt himself. None of the deputies were hurt or anyone else.
That he saw when he was. It's a very interesting job. It's a very exciting job. It's a very rewarding job. So I leave with a lot of heartache.
Cities along the U.S.-Canadian border are getting caught in the middle of the growing battle between authorities and smugglers of cigarettes. As many as 1/3 of the cigarettes now being sold in Canada are smuggled, stolen, or counterfeit, according to law enforcement estimates. That's because cigarette excise taxes in Canada have risen 600% since 1980, from about $1.18 a pack to an average $6.30 a pack. Most illegal cigarettes are supplied by smugglers who buy Canadian cigarettes that have been legally exported to the U.S. at as little as $13 a carton. These cigarettes are then illegally smuggled back into Canada and sold on the black market for about $25, well below the legal retail price of $47 a carton.
Cigarette smuggling in Canada is probably one of the biggest organized crime activity that's going on today. It has mushroomed from 1985 to present day by hundreds of percentage points per year.
The high price of cigarettes also makes them highly attractive to thieves. Across Canada, armed robbery has increased dramatically. In many cases, the thieves don't even bother with cash registers. They just go right to the cigarettes. Convenience store owners say the problem could spread to the U.S.
Convenience store owners are fearful that an increase in the excise tax is going to lead to more crime. Convenience stores right now are currently grappling with security problems, and this issue is just going to open up a whole new field of problems.
The Clinton administration is considering increased taxes on cigarettes in the U.S. and is expected to draft legislation to that effect early next year. That, say convenience store owners, could stir a black market here and cost American jobs. Derek Hines, News 6.
The medical examiners report that type of injuries are consistent with a hit and run. And none that we can determine at this point. It's a difficult case. No, upon our arrival at the scene, the body had been moved, and the body was, or the victim was at that time was at the apartment at the High Banks Resort. He wasn't at the scene where the incident occurred.
Salmi has been working at Duluth Diamond Tool and Horseshoe Company, now Cooper Industries, for 22 years. He worked his way up to union president and planned to retire in 12 years. Those plans came to an abrupt end this past fall when Cooper officials announced they would close the plant with more than a century of history here in the Northland.
Diamond has had a history of people being able to work here and retire from here. And a lot of these people, this is all they know how to do. This is all they've done.
average worker at Diamond Tool is 53 years old and has been with the company for 23 years. The closure will leave the employees not only without jobs, but also with very little hope of putting their specialized skills to work with another company.
You know, you've been here for 23 years, you forgot how to look for a job, you don't know how to write resumes, we can get all this stuff done, you know. It's trying to get into a trend where you can't get out of it, you know.
When this longtime Duluth business closes its doors come December of this year, it will mark the end of a struggle to keep the plant alive. But for the 250 employees who will lose their jobs, it will just be the beginning of their struggle.
But Cooper officials say they want to help their employees find work after the plant closes. The company and union officials are joining forces with the state's dislocated worker program to come up with some options. It's hoped training and education will help Diamond's employees re-enter the workforce. And while the future does look brighter now for many, it will be hard to say goodbye to Diamond Tool.
It's been my life. I mean, I raised my kids off it. I've got a son going to college. You know, so I mean, you know, it was my living. You know, and you know, now it's all gone. So I just got to pick up and start over again. You know.
In Duluth, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
September 16th, workers with National Steel arrive at the Keewatin plant gate and are told without a contract in place, they're out of a job.
I think you are making a very, very grave mistake. You know what this workforce has done for you?
14 days later, International Steelworker President Lynn Williams comes to Nashwauk to rally his followers and to warn other steel companies about doing business with National.
I urge you in the spirit of common sense and simple justice and fairness, stay the hell out of this dispute and don't.
Consequently, this was a treaty that they will dismantle and destroy those missiles in exchange for American aid. Number 5.
By Big Steel. Despite whatever progress you've made in the past 12 months on DRI processes, I doubt range products would be competitive.
That's not a very optimistic assessment about the future for direct reduction on the Iron Range. And Bob Garvey, who heads one of the country's largest mini-mills, pulls no punches when he talks about what's preventing development in the area. He lays the blame on high labor, energy, and environmental costs, ineffective government, and the wrong attitude.
When you're going to sit down and talk about how you're going to go forward with a project on the Iron Range, start with a white sheet of paper. Do not start with trying to tweak what you're currently doing. It will not happen.
Garvey says his mills in St. Paul in Iowa can get product out of Venezuela cheaper than he can from the range. Still, he's willing to listen to any proposal for expansion. And today he received an invitation to begin meetings with Iron Range lawmakers who realize operations like Garvey's will continue to hammer away at the steel industry served by Iron Range ore.
If your first answer is it can't be done, it won't be done. You got to be willing to say it can be done, or at least I'm willing to work like hell to try to make it happen.
George.
Anything else? 324 to the club. Here you are. Thank you.
28-year-old Kurt Anderson and his father Brooks are in the middle of what they call a human rights struggle. Kurt is a native Northlander who is out of the closet about his sexual orientation. He's gay. 60-year-old Brooks accepts his son's sexuality. He's also a Lutheran minister. Both have been asked to share their story tomorrow at Cloquet High School's Respect Day.
The story that I'm telling is so far from glamorous. In the high school system, the worst possible insult, generally, to throw at somebody is, oh, you fag, oh, you queer. And to wake up one morning and realize that that's you.
I grew up as a male, taught to be insecure about my own manhood, and thus to turn that insecurity as a kind of hatred of homosexuals. And so my story is a story of coming free of that.
The reason I'm doing this is not to recruit. The reason I'm doing this is to try and get some understanding with the other students. I'm probably aiming this more at the heterosexual students there. I want them to have some understanding of what I went through when I was in high school, so that maybe they won't hurt the students who are gay there.
Brooks, you're a man of religion. What do you tell people who cite the Bible's verse and chapter with regards to homosexuality?
It's my contention that we have used scriptures to reinforce our biases through the ages.
What was the most painful moment you can remember about growing up being gay?
I remember through high school, I lived in fear most of the time.
I'm proud of my son. I think he's got a lot of guts.
The Andersons will be sharing their story with over 100 students here at Cloquet High tomorrow. The same day, our nation officially recognizes another story of human rights struggle, Dr. Martin Luther King. In Cloquet, Chip Wallace, News 6.
On Wednesday, December 22nd, the small business owner on Central Avenue in West Duluth found someone had pried open the door to his store and stole about $1,000 in cash. The money had been taped to the walls of the shop and had been tips from customers over the years. The money was mostly in ones, but there were a few 5s, 10s, and 20s in the collection. The bills were unusual because most of them were written on with black or blue marker and usually contained the name Dusty. Have you seen any of this unusual money? Do you know anything about the burglary? Crime Stoppers could pay you up to $1,000 for information on this crime. Crime Stoppers pays rewards for information on most crimes, as well as on drug locations and on stolen goods. Your identity will not be revealed. Call us at 1-800-974-TIPS or 723-ENOUGH.
Anything that I suggest they do lasts for 5 minutes. We've already played Hero Quest, we've played Sorry, we've played dance music, we've built a fort, and we're getting ready for lunch, and it's 10:30. It's going to be a long day.
did not meet the fishable, swimmable goal. 1/3 have not attained any of the water quality standards set in the 1972 Act. And the major cause of this failure is non-point source. Poison runoff from agricultural lands, from construction sites, from city streets. And that has to be the next frontier in the clean water program effort.
And I'm going to describe the program to you, but first of all, I will tell you that the current system stinks. It really, really does.
As director of St. Louis County Social Services, Jim Huber is not alone in thinking the system stinks. Many people not on welfare feel that same way.
I think we have to face the fact that that our society always has to have somebody worse off than we, so that we feel better about ourselves.
Caseworkers in St. Louis County each handle between 22 and 28 clients, doling out money each month for food stamps, housing assistance, child care, a myriad of programs. The county is out to change the way it delivers this aid. Most likely, families and individuals will get one lump sum each month, but with a difference. They'll be placed into work and education programs designed to remove them from the welfare rolls after 2 years. And while they're working, they won't be penalized for money earned as they are now.
To be honest with you, if we see honest-to-God welfare reform, it's probably going to cost us more. Because the welfare system is a system of economics. Nations like Russia have had to now develop a welfare system. Now they're going capitalist, because a welfare system is a part of capitalism, whether or not we like to believe that. The fact remains is capitalism depends on having a group of people unemployed.
Huber and others in St. Louis County are out to reduce those numbers. A still-forming county-wide select committee will eventually determine how costly the program might be. And by changing the delivery of service and who gets it and how much, Huber believes some of the stereotypes of welfare recipients will also be changed.
Part of my responsibility, I think, is to again say to the community, look, there are two sides to this. Now, if you want to change, then you've got to advocate for change. You just can't advocate for discrimination. Yeah. No.
What do you think? Cut shots, I think. Okay.
My back hurts. My back hurts worse than my ribs.
And what would happen is that a contractor would be called in, the work done, and then the property owner would be billed through the assessment method.
As family members listened and wept, Little described how he returned to the murder scene the day after murdering Luella.
Domestic abuse is not new to this community. What is new and frightening is the level of violence.
1993 was a deadly year for the Northland. We saw an alarming increase in the number of domestic murders. The latest, the brutal murder of Evelis Luella Letourneau. Her killer, Richard Little, a jealous ex-boyfriend. Media coverage of the murders was extensive. Some say too extensive.
You know, if they do something, they know they're going to end the media while they haven't. I mean, what can some poor slug and blue-collar worker, you know, who's out beating his wife up every once in a while when he's drunk, you know, how else is he going to get on the media?
Could media coverage of the Northland's domestic murders actually contribute to Richard Little's brutal crime? Some say yes.
Is there a causal factor in what people watch on what they see in the news, in their behavior? And the answer is possibly.
On the other hand, domestic violence advocates say the media's coverage can often be too little and too late. Michelle LeBeau says blaming television news is just another excuse for a man's violent behavior.
Men murder their wives or their girlfriends or their partners, not because of anything they see on television, but for a lot of other reasons. And they batter their partners because they want to control them.
The debate is gaining national attention. Many television stations around the country are re-examining their crime coverage. It can be a difficult task in a medium which is a reflection of our society, a society becoming more violent. In Duluth, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
See what they're talking about.
Our country's Second Amendment guarantees its citizens the right to bear arms, but that right could be restricted. Handgun violence has caught the nation's eye, and talk of a handgun ban is becoming more common.
We should have very strict rules. We should have to have guns registered annually. We should have ammunition be very, very heavily taxed. All assault weapons banned.
Opponents say while a ban on handguns may look good on paper, it will not be effective in decreasing violence.
It's not going to do anything. It sounds good, but it doesn't do anything. They should go after the person that misuses it.
Gun dealer Paul Blumenson worked in law enforcement for 14 years. He knows firsthand the damage these weapons can cause. Still, he stands behind the right to own a handgun.
That's the first step to take all our guns away. There's a lot of people that want to take our Constitution away. And if I'm still alive, I'll fight.
The fight to stay alive is driving many communities to appeal to their legislators. Among the biggest battles, keeping handguns away from juveniles. It is a problem the Northland is not immune to. Paula Lundgren founded the Duluth group Community Against Guns. At the top of their agenda, stopping local newspapers from advertising guns for sale in their classifieds.
It doesn't take much for a juvenile to come up with cash. And all they have to do is give it to who's ever selling the gun, and they're going to take the cash. They ain't going to ask them for any identification. They ain't going to ask them how old they are.
Communities across the country are asking for, if not demanding, answers to the crime and violence crises. And while the debate on a handgun ban is likely to continue, it may now be closer to reality than ever before. In Duluth, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
This tiny bug has wreaked havoc for years. It's the deer tick, and it's found in abundance in Northland woods. Its bite can make a person very sick with chronic arthritis like joint pain, vision, and heart problems. And up until this week, there's been no test to positively identify whether a person has the disease. Mayo Clinic researchers have now developed a sophisticated test that will detect much more accurately if the tick bite has resulted in Lyme disease. For people like Tom Greer of Duluth, who has been treated as though he has Lyme disease for years, it could make a world of difference.
I went through a big period of depression, and part of that was just not knowing exactly what I was dealing with.
Since there has been no way of knowing if a person has Lyme disease or some other condition with similar symptoms, aggressive, expensive treatments have been the only answer. The test will help caregivers know if they should continue or try something else.
Is the bacteria actually there? Are we doing good? Or are we treating a patient that does not have the bacteria and actually just put them at risk of complications from the medicine itself?
Health officials point out the new diagnosis method is still in the early stages and as such won't be widely available for some time. In the meantime, Mayo researchers continue their work on a vaccine to prevent Lyme disease altogether. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
The numbers are becoming increasingly disturbing. 70 to 80% of college entrants do not obtain a degree and enter the job market early. 37% of newly created jobs in the future will be in the technical field, and probably the most disturbing statistic of all,
70% of the new jobs in the future are going to be for post-high school training, but not for your college degrees. Will require probably 2 years or 3 years past a high school degree. And therefore, what we need to do is change our educational systems to start training kids for those jobs, because when they graduate in 3 or 4 years, they have to be able to move on to another program and get a job in an area where they're going to get a livable wage.
It's called Pro-Tech, and it may be the answer to the gap between working right out of high school and going on to college to obtain a 4-year degree. Students involved in the program even get paid.
In our field, when they go out in their senior year to have an apprenticeship type program working, there will be a stipends provided for the students at that point, yes. It's not the big dollar value. I would say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of a minimum wage, but it's a stipends for the work that they're doing.
Instruction begins during the eligible student's junior year and can carry into a business or vocational school. There are many aspects in determining a student's eligibility.
We do not have any required tests to get into the program, but there is an application process with interviews, and at this time we'll be able to accept 30 students in our health career area for the fall of '94.
Many area businesses and educational institutions have aided Pro-Tech by providing a total of $92,000 in grants. The program is set to begin at the high school when the 1994-95 school year gets underway. In Cloquet, Derek Hines, News 6.
"9-0 was the vote last night by the Superior City Council against a proposed plan to buy out 5 senior members of the city's police department. The reason for such a lopsided vote on such a heated issue?
Precedence, I think, was one of the main reasons, and along with the outpouring from the public of not just buying off people.
The officers wanted to retire because, in part, they were not happy with their work environment.
There's been some hard feelings. I think the senior officers around here have gotten a bad deal. He's the chief. He can do what he wants.
The chief is Police Chief Doyle Barker. His reaction to the vote?
I accept the council's decision, and we'll look forward from here. And I think it wouldn't do any good for us to look back and to see what might have been. So we'll just go ahead with business.
And that goes for the officers as well.
I'll stay around. I don't know that anybody around here has any problem with the way I'm doing my duty now, and I'll continue to do my duty as expected of me. So I don't see any problem.
In Superior, Ted Rollins, News 6.
From a cow that receives supplemental BS. The reason the debate over bovine growth hormone is so frightening is because just about everyone consumes milk, especially our children. Within a couple of weeks, most grocery stores in the Northland will begin selling milk with BGH. This group of protesters advocates a boycott, saying it's not safe and could result in all kinds of health problems, particularly in kids.
Their growing bodies will probably be affected the most and first, although it's going to affect all of us.
But its safety has been well researched. The Food and Drug Administration has given its go-ahead, as has the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the American Dietetic Association, among others.
I'm afraid that consumers will be frightened into thinking there's a good milk and a bad milk when they're exactly identical.
But many Northland farmers say they don't want to inject their cows with bovine growth hormone.
His fear is that it's not good for the cattle, and even though there's been some preliminary research done, he doesn't believe it's been long enough.
But when the larger dairies use the hormone and increased milk production brings prices down, many smaller dairies could be forced out of business. The only store we found in this area where BGH-free milk will be sold is the Whole Food Co-op in Duluth. But since there's no scientific test that will prove whether milk has BGH or not, consumers must take milk sellers at their word. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6. Do one more?
One look at the cost to produce a single ton of steel provides insight into the battle the Iron Range faces as it continues to supply ore to what's known as integrated steel makers, those still using blast furnace technology. Jim Todd is the chief executive officer of Birmingham Steel, the nation's largest mini steel mill, a major competitor of Iron Range mining operations. The Taconite Enhancement Committee brought Todd to Duluth to explain the potential of mini steel mills and possibly direct reduction facilities here.
When we looked at it from our perspective, from our company, running our products, that we did not feel it was the number one location.
Now, that's not to say that Birmingham would never do business in the area, but Todd says only one operation meets his company's criteria.
The mini mill industry, in total, would be much more comfortable with a non-union operation, and that, by process of elimination, leaves you at Cypress North Shore.
High labor costs are continually cited as a major disadvantage to expansion of new technologies to the Iron Range. But it's not the only one. Todd says the high cost of other services, the need to import coal, the potential of strikes because of failed union contracts, and the influence of existing steel companies are all stumbling blocks. But studies are underway to determine the feasibility of converting the shut-down National Steel pellet plant in Keewatin to a direct reduction facility. The Ellis-Chalmer Company is looking at what it would take to convert the plant's kilns as state officials attempt to lure prospective operators. With the plant now shut down and union workers laid off, area officials suspect Keewatin may be the logical place for any new development to occur.
At supermarkets around the Northland, nutritionists and home economists are volunteering their time to explain the new FDA label regulations. As we just walk through this area, we see fat-free, low-fat, light. We look at the labels. What does all this mean? Is it really light? Am I eating the right thing?
It can be confusing. It may mean that it's lower in fat, and it may not mean that. This label says 40% less fat, and we don't know exactly what that means because it depends on how much fat was in the original.
The new regulations will require complete truth in labeling. Claims like low cholesterol and fat-free can be used only if a food meets new legal standards set by the government.
I have a family of 5, and it's their health. That's what it's all about, eating right, and you want to know what you're buying.
Not all the products on the shelf have the new labels as yet. It'll take time for the FDA regulations to kick in. For example, here's a package of Oreo cookies with the new labeling, and right beside it, another package of Oreo cookies with the old kind of labeling. Here's the information the new labels will require, and the print is much bigger to make it easier to read. Over the next couple of weeks, volunteers will be passing out pamphlets explaining exactly what all this nutrition information means to you. After that, you can call the American Heart Association for more information. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
But unless the cities are included in that package, or unless we don't work on tuition if it's created. The reason this makes city government better and superior right now is because if there is a city manager, city councilors can't campaign for the city manager position. So the games will stop.
Well, about 4 years ago, a couple friends of mine and I were sitting around looking for a shack-wacky party. Cabin fever was getting to him, and he was worried about wearing his fur hat to anywhere. And we said we should have a party that could solve both those problems. Someplace you could wear your fur and you could get out of the house in the middle of the winter.
And we thought it would be an effective means to get a message to the kids and have them start thinking on how they can be safe at home. February has Burn Awareness Week, and we always try to do something in the community that makes them more aware of what they can do at home to be safe.
We're ready.
It was a mild Northland day, a weekday, which meant that the 68 children from Ulu Elementary were expected to attend class. Oops, make that 69. I was a little late. It's not so much that those who normally attend the elementary school were expected to be on time, but rather that they wanted to. You see, it was Laura Ingalls Day, and I most certainly didn't want to miss it.
Here the whole school has been reading the Laura Ingalls Wilder series, and we wanted to give the kids an opportunity to talk to the people who actually lived the history that we read about. So we invited those people in to share their experiences today, and we wanted to create an environment so that they could see how it felt too.
There were so many things to do, so many things to learn.
Well, we've got 4 groups with a cooking display and a home arts display and farm implements and the sheep shearing and the covered wagon ride. And then we've got a group of kids going over to a one-room schoolhouse. So we wanted them to experience what it was like going to school in a one-room schoolhouse with all ages of children there and the discipline that they had.
Boy, I was even fortunate enough to eat a genuine old-fashioned pioneer meal. Gosh, I'm glad I went back to school. I never was able to do this when I was younger.
Ensure domestic tranquility. Boy, this looks familiar.
I guess there are some things that never change. Oh well, at least I had fun making new friends when I had the chance.
Mrs. Larson, can I please go home?
The hydrologic system in, for instance, the state of Minnesota, we have a lot of lakes, they're all interconnected. And people like the Corps of Engineers make releases from these reservoirs so that they can make room for what the precipitation they might think is coming over the next 30 days. Tourism is another industry that's tremendously weather sensitive. So it's hard to find some aspect of our industrial setup that is not sensitive to the weather. Transportation, agriculture,
We're going to use that same principle today of value, but we're only using one color.
These 4th grade students from Stoll Elementary School in Duluth are learning more than reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're learning about nature, the earth, and ecology.
That's when we're teaching them to appreciate it, so that when they grow up, they'll want to take care of it.
Funded by a grant from the Department of Transportation, the students visit Jay Cook State Park 10 times a year. This is their 4th visit. The class of 40 breaks into teams of 2. Each team has a 100-square-foot plot of land to study nature's changes.
The snow has melted and deers have made tracks.
What do you learn when you come out here?
About the animals and some of the kills that the coyotes have made back here.
What kind of kills have you seen?
Just a rabbit kill so far, and that was today.
After each session, the student paints watercolors that reflect their experience. Bringing the student to the subject is not a new idea. It's a teaching tool that helps the learning process stick.
The most I expect from them is that they look, that they smile, that we laugh a lot, that we talk about things that are out here, and that we go away wanting to come back again.
Educators hope the students learn to appreciate and respect Mother Nature. They hope the ecology seed planted today will last a lifetime. Reporting from Jay Cook State Park, Chip Wallace, News 6.
With Bob Dylan's Times They Are A-Changing playing, today's noon-hour rally looked and sounded a lot like the peace rallies of the 60s.
At the time of the writing of the Magna Carta, an English lord once said, "There may be times when we fail to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest." It's now or never.
In the 60s, it was Vietnam. For these kids in the 90s, it's outdated computers. In the Grand Rapids High School, there are 971 students and 50 computers. So obsolete, the superintendent said they should be used for boat anchors. So outdated are these systems that some of the students traveling to an event in the Twin Cities this coming weekend will have to bring their own equipment because they haven't been adequately trained on what's now considered state-of-the-art.
There are multiple reasons that people can come up with to not support a referendum, but I maintain there are 5,000 plus reasons to support it, and that's really for the kids.
Because of the closeness of last week's failed referendum, school supporters appear ready to place another near $10 million bond before the voters as soon as mid-May. And if they weren't vocal in their support last time, students say they'll be heard the next time.
You people are the future of this town, and I don't know what students here are going to want to bring their kids and their families back to this community if they know that their students will be educated in the same building and using the same facilities that were outdated than when they were going to school here.
Help stop the lockout of American workers by the Japanese firm.
We will be giving out one of these until you get 10. They got crime tips on them. And what you do, you ask your mom and dad what's on the back of these cards, and there are tips telling you to be good and what not to do. Yes, you can have one too. You want one too?
I want both of them.
Both of them? Are you going to be a good little girl? Huh? Are you going to follow all the rules on the cards?
Yeah.
You are. You're going to follow all the rules on the cards.
Me too.
And I'll be back next week and I'll give you another one. Meanwhile, I'll tell you what else I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a junior police badge. But you know what you have to do? If you get this junior police badge, you got to be good in the neighborhood and make sure all the other kids are good in the neighborhood, right? Are you going to do that?
Me too.
How about Cheryl Swan? Can you think you sexually harassed her, Tim?
The day started with a series of informational skits dealing with a number of issues, including sexual harassment. Then, after a snack, it was off to the next session. 800 students from 18 different schools were shuffled around the deck this morning to learn about an array of subjects, from friendship to skincare to
sports injury, sports medicine. My name is Gail Thomas. I'm what they call an athletic trainer.
There was truly something for everyone today, things to watch out for and things to avoid.
The fourth stage is the final stage, and this usually ends in incarceration or prison or jail. If you're lucky, that's what it ends in. If you want to get out, they may kill you if you try to get out or switch gangs. I mean, this is how serious this gets.
To coordinate an event like this means controlling 800 teenagers. which means lots of volunteers.
We've got people from the clinic, the hospitals, the schools, the nonprofits, UMD, Scholastica, pretty good smattering of our community.
It's like organizing this thing.
It's a major undertaking, yes, definitely.
It's an undertaking that seems to have paid off. In Duluth, Ted Rowlands, News 6.
When we came in, the track that sundew had broken out earlier in the week, and then the spear had followed out, that track is refrozen, and it's refrozen brash, but it's very light, and we came in at 12 knots, so it was real no problem. Our intentions when we leave, we'll go out the Superior entrance and break out the Superior entry so that the 1,000-footers have it a little easier coming and going.
Have you observed TV stations, radio stations, newspapers?
Stops at all 4 local television stations were on the agenda. Yesterday, the group toured our studios asking questions and examining American technology. That, they found, was the biggest difference between Russian and American TV journalism. As for the people of Duluth and its sister city of Petrozavodsk, Andrei Ferotin, a business reporter, found little difference.
We always knew that Americans, as people, were just like us. We also knew that they lived better. Well, we're here because we think that this may be a chance to look at our future.
Andrei's city is struggling to master Russia's newfound democracy. He hopes part of its future will include business exchanges with Duluth. In fact, he was quite anxious to talk to Mayor Doty about that possibility.
I have encouraged our new director of our Chamber of Commerce to make contacts in the sister cities that we're associated with to encourage those types of activities.
The Russian visit was made possible by the Duluth Peace Center. While strides in Petrozavodsk have been made, Center Director Brooks Anderson senses the frustration these journalists are experiencing back home.
The road to democracy is a slow, painful one. And I think particularly Petrozavodsk is doing well, and their coming here is very important to them. I think, for all the other purposes, they come here so that they can sort of restore their sense of hope that our friendship is long-term and we'll be with them in this journey.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Filing your taxes can be a very traumatic thing. It's very difficult to do. This is true whether you're getting a refund back or not. And we'd like to service the citizens of Minnesota in every way that we can and hopefully make it easier for them to comply.